Okay, I guess I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, folks, for coming. I'm going to be talking today about stuff that honestly I haven't done very much of this myself, so it's mostly going to be reporting on the state of the art as I understand it, having scouted around to look at things. And I'm on the brink of trying some of this myself, and perhaps some of you will be as well. I'll start by telling you the sort of story that led me into thinking about this, which I'm guessing lots of you have gone through something like this train of thought as well. Incidentally, before I jump into it, here's a QR code that you can use, or if you type in this, and Addie, you may want to get that to the Zoom folks. If you go there, if you were at my last talk in this series, that had some information about setting up your own custom chatbot. And so that information is there in this folder on Box. And the slides for today's talk are on there also. And you can follow links in it to some of the external things that I'll be talking about today. So if you want links to those things, going here is your easiest way to get them. Good. I see a phone held up. Are you ready for me to go on? No, you're fine. I just didn't want to rush past if you're aiming your phone at it. Good. Okay. So we'll go ahead and sort of tell the story of how I got into thinking about this sort of stuff. So I'm a philosophy professor. It's very standard in philosophy for us to assign written papers where a student will go home, think for quite a while, hopefully long and hard about various philosophical issues, figure out good arguments to make, anticipate counter arguments, hone their views, figure out what to think about matters and the best ways to argue about them, put it together in a paper, and I'd like to think that they're developing understanding of important issues for the course and developing skills as they're doing this. And my guess is that I'll ask you in a few minutes what your own area is, but my guess is in lots of different fields you have assignments that maybe the particular sorts of understanding and skills that you're looking for in your take-home assignments are different than the ones that I'm looking for my philosophy students, but my guess is that this sort of description probably fits lots of assignments in lots of different departments that you've done. And historically, I've given these assignments grades afterwards, in large part because that motivates the students to do the assignment and to develop these skills and understanding. And also because we need to report grades, and these are supposed to be a signal of the understanding and skills that students have developed. So we'd like to be able to assess the papers they wrote, use that to figure out what grade we ought to put on their report cards. Now, probably lots of you are here because these old assignments that worked for much of our careers honestly are not working very well anymore, at least for me. And the reason for that is chatbots, that there are all these AIs out there that are really cheap or free even for students to access, that are capable of writing papers that are pretty decent quality. I think a lot of chatbot responses now are to the level that, at least in my lower level classes, I give an A- to the sort of paper that the chatbot can write with very little prompting on the human's part. So chatbots can do much easier for the students than sitting down and doing all the hard work of writing a paper themselves, but still end up with a quality that's similar or in many cases better than what the student themselves was going to come up with. So as a consequence of all these chatbots being there so easy for the students to use, has really cut away the motivational structure. They're no longer motivated, a lot of them, to sit and spend all the time writing a paper themselves. So it's basically turned upside down, this idea of motivation. And it gets worse once some of the students are using chatbots to turn in their homework. Then the other students say, well, why should I do all this hard work to get a worse grade? Shouldn't I also be using a chatbot? And so you just get this race to the bottom of all of them feeling like they ought to be using chatbots. So the motivation structure is inverted from what it ought to be if we want our students to learn. And as a consequence, they're no longer developing the understanding and skills that I wanted them to be developing by taking the time to do this assignment. When they lean on the AI to do it for them, they bypass all the learning that I was looking for. And when the product I get isn't representative of their own understanding of the material or their own skills, it's representative of the AI's, then I can't assess the paper to get an honest signal to send on in their transcript to other people. And in fact, perversely, this signaling thing has got inverted. In many cases, when I get a student who gets a B on their paper, that's worse than what the chatbot was going to get. And it's probably because the student tried hard and had a pretty good level of understanding, not perfect, it was only B level, but still way better than the D students who asked a chatbot to write the thing for them and get an A- on their assignment. So you get this inversion that the worst scores are going to the students who actually tried and understood the material better, and the better scores go to the lazy deadbeats who used a chatbot. So the signaling is just totally backwards from what it ought to be. So everything's messed up at this stage. Our whole world's turned upside down, and I get this sense from talking to lots of professors in lots of different fields that the advent of AI has had a similar effect on what's going on in your field, and lots of our take-home assignments just don't work the way that they used to. So one option would be, well, let's get rid of doing these sorts of assignments at all, and I'm not ready to do that. I think there's a real value that students used to get from sitting and spending a lot of time figuring out what to say in a paper. And I'm not ready to give up on the idea that I can engineer that sort of learning experience for my students. And some of the skills and understanding that they were getting by doing those assignments, I don't see great alternate ways for them to get those skills. So I'm not ready to give up on this sort of assignment entirely. Another option would be to stop grading this. If the grading is giving me these inverted scores from what I think are the right scores actually ought to be, then maybe I should stop grading, still try to get the students to do it, but stop making their grades hinge on it. So that way, at least I won't be sending inverted signals outside. And just one problem with this is without the grading, they're not going to be motivated to do the thing. I think in some cases, this is the right thing to do. So for lots of my take-home assignments, the smaller homeworks, I've ended up deciding I have exam questions that'll test whether they really understand it. So I sort of don't count the grade for very much to give them just enough of a grade so they'll be motivated to do the homework. And so effectively, I've stopped having the grade count for enough to really make a difference to their final grade, and I count on testing that same material on in-class exams where I can be more confident they're not cheating. So for those sort of homeworks, yeah, I think maybe stopping if have that determine their grade, oops, I just hit something there, is the right way to go. But with a lot of take-home assignments, especially papers where they have some choice as to what they're going to write about, and one student will write about free will, and another student's going to write about Descartes, and whatever your students write about is probably totally different. But when the students are picking different things, I think each of them are developing the sorts of skills of honing their own arguments, and so it's a good exercise to let them write papers on the topics that they're most interested in pursuing. But I can't just give them a one-size-fits-all exam when they've been writing about so many different things. So this is a case of an assignment where I can't replace the grading with an in-class exam and still be grading the same things that the paper was meant to grade. I don't think just backing away from grading and shifting to having the grading determined in some other way is going to totally fix this problem either. So this leads, I've heard lots of folks suggest this, and it seems fairly plausible that if only I had the time, a good solution would be to sit down with all my students after they turn in a paper and talk with them about the paper, and that'll let me distinguish the ones who really understood what they were writing from the ones who just leaned on something else to produce the paper for them and had no clue what was actually going on in it. After I've sat down with the students, then I'll know what grade to give them, and if they know they're going to have to sit down and talk with me, they're going to be motivated to do more work. So if we did this, the first big thing is it really flips the motivation thing back around. That now they're motivated to get ready so they won't be totally embarrassed and get a horrible grade after they sit down and do the oral exam about their paper. Now they're motivated to actually be ready for that exam and also to be working on the paper to get them ready for that exam. And that in turn, at least the hope is, leads them to actually develop the sorts of understanding and skills that we were hoping for them to have out of the paper. Now we kind of needed to change the motivational structure a little bit. It's really the fear of the oral exam rather than the fear of getting a bad grade on the paper that's motivating them to work on the paper, but still we're motivating them to work on the paper because they know they're going to have to talk about it after they wrote it. And if I can now successfully distinguish the students who really do understand the material from the ones who just got an AI to write something that was pretty well written for them, now I can send honest signals again on the report card. So the thought here is, yeah, oral exams could fix all this. The big problem is they're super time consuming and none of us have time to do oral exams with especially our larger classes. And so that leads pretty naturally, at least for somebody like me who's pretty AI curious, pretty AI loving in lots of ways, I suppose, to think, well, if only I could automate giving the oral exams, then I wouldn't have to spend a bunch of time doing it, but I could still get the assessment of whether or not the students actually understood things. So if we can replace the professor, or at least move the professor off into the background and have a lot of the time-consuming scheduling meetings with students and doing the back and forth conversation with all of them, if you can get that to be done by an AI, then this becomes scalable. You can actually do it without it occupying a huge amount of your own time. So at least that's the theory behind this. And so what I'm going to be talking about today is some attempts that others have done to do this sort of thing, ways of going about doing this. If you think you want to do it yourself, I'll point you in the good directions to get started. I'm, kind of on the cusp of thinking that I should do this one of these semesters myself, though I haven't done it yet. So that's the stuff that I'm going to be exploring with you all today. Put up a slide like this in my last talk here, and I think it's perfectly applicable to this one also, distinguishing different attitudes that you might have towards using AI in these sorts of pedagogical ways, where one sort of attitude you could have, and if you saw my last talk, I was definitely a builder in that talk, sitting down building chatbots for my students to talk with about course material. I look at a lot of this stuff from a builder perspective, thinking about, well, if I did do this, how would I do it? And I've thought through quite a lot of that. But honestly, at this stage, I'm more of the scout, at least with respect to the oral exams things, as I'm really curious to see what's out there and see what other people are doing, but not sure how soon it would be, if ever, that I end up deciding to actually do this myself. So my role in this largely is the role of a scout, and I scouted things out and can report to you, which might make your job a little easier in scouting it out yourselves. And then another attitude that I think you might have towards lots of this stuff is a skeptical attitude. You're trying to keep an eye on these horrible changes that are happening in our world, so you'll know what's happening as you try to resist it. And that's a reasonable attitude. And honestly, as I dug into this, there were, it was kind of a roller coaster, and I'll talk about it a bit, but there were definitely times in the process that I got more skeptical about whether this could even work at all. And you'll see some of that skepticism as we go through the talk here. So I'll admit I'm all three of these with respect to the oral exams AIs. But I'm curious, I'd like to go ahead and open things up to hear from folks who are here about what department you're in, what use you might consider putting this sort of AI to, and whether you think of yourself as a scout or a builder or a skeptic regarding these issues. So anybody willing to start us off telling us about your interests and how you think of yourself in this categorization?
So, hello? I don't think so. Oh, okay, perfect. So I'm Marcus Butts. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Faculty and Research at Cox. And so traditionally for MBA students, we do a lot of outside of the class case analyses. We no longer do that, period, hard stop. And so now we create a lot of our cases with AI, do a lot of in-class written case analyses, use a rubric once we train it. We're also using more custom chat GPTs that we feed in different themes and models and then have it interact, role play, which I think in the future will probably be an avatar or an oral interaction. But I think we do a ton of group presentations. So when I saw about oral exams, a group presentation is really an oral exam. So we don't see ourselves moving away from group presentations. It's a key component of kind of the teamwork and the relational performance that's required in the business school. So I was interested in seeing this and seeing how I could adapt certain things when we think about oral exams, maybe in a classroom where we have group presentations.
Great.
So.
One of the examples we'll look at in a little bit is a business school professor probably doing similar sorts of assignments to what you were describing there. So maybe you'll decide that what he's doing works for you, or maybe you'll decide it doesn't. We'll see.
Perfect. Thank you.
Who would like to go next?
I'm Rachel Wright. I'm a lecturer in bio, and I teach the big intro bio class. I don't know how I would implement this there, but in my upper division classes, similar, I have presentations. Like I tell my students, the end goal is like you are able to take an idea, understand it well enough to communicate it to someone else, to a broad range of audience too. So, and I know, especially with this one poster presentation we have, a lot of students are stressed about it all semester. So it's not only just about like as a way, I think I still might like to be the final assessor, but I'm curious about an AI tool as like a collaborative peer through the process that can get them over the hump of, just being nervous about the presentation and not knowing what questions to expect and not knowing how to communicate. So
I'm Omar Rozak. I'm in economics. I'm kind of joining both kind of use cases. So in my undergrad class, I have a semester-long project where I'm very hard on teaching them how to use AI to actually do econ analysis that are replicable, well done, well presented, nice. And then I have them always present also like with nice slides. And so I was here more to see if we can somehow resolve the problem of we have 40 students, so it's 20 groups, and I don't want to have to do 5-minute presentations. I want to have them do 30-minute presentations. And then I also kind of want to have them to be able to practice because, again, we're so worried of let's move everything to in-class, in-person, oral, etc. But that punishes other people who are not as easygoing, easy presenting, etc. So it would be a nice way for them to also train themselves, improve themselves. And if one could have it like with the AI not only asking, but really recording and then giving you feedback on the way you present, which again, when you take a pedagogical class, they come in with a camera, they record you and show you how crappy your classes are and how bad you do things, and you never notice it until you see it, right? And so it would be really great to have a tool or ways of doing something like this.
I'm Konstantin Iklanu. I teach in the World Languages Department, and I've noticed something funny too about oral presentations. The students do the presentations ahead of class with AI, the presentations are AI, the materials AI, and then they come to class and they just rehearse. They usually hold a laptop in their hands like this, which drives me nuts.
Yep.
And they're like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, what was this about? So it feels like oral presentations need to somehow be spontaneous if we want to actually test understanding and critical thinking and an ability to recall and build with information. But yeah, it's complicated. It's hard nowadays.
Hi, I'm Mira, World Languages. To answer your question, I will place myself being intermediate scout maybe and hoping to become a builder. So with World Languages, of course, we're in everyone is in a unique position, but so we have this component of our teaching where like students have to do the legwork, right? If you want to know how to say something, you have to memorize yourself. If you want to achieve somewhat of and be able to speak somewhat, communicate in a different language unfamiliar to you, you have to do the work. And so instead of, focusing on how AI is preventing us from achieving our goals in the classroom, different levels, right? Advanced levels, literature, they will deal with the same problems you have with papers. But let's say, language classes for second year where we're still working on form, I want to embrace the advantages of AI. What could be not skeptic, but the opposite in philosophical terms? What would be to where there's no way we can just be like, AI is just evil. And then in 2026 going on into the future where, this technology can bring so many opportunities to just like sort of be resistant to change. And it will take some work, but like, I think it is possible to do, the Socratic dialogue to practice, or to like when avatars advance to have some like, when you don't have anyone else to converse with, to use, that to its advantages, and just many other things. Like I've been able to improve student writing with AI. So I just want to embrace the advantages, and then, just kind of like keep on discussing with colleagues and peers how to structure it, how to organize it to where we don't make it a crutch, but we use it to our advantage to enhance the learning experience.
Yeah, I think these tools are really powerful, and if
Yeah.
we can find good ways to
Fine.
make use of that power, there's a lot of opportunities here as well as the threats.
We have a Zoom raised hand. So Bivin, do you want to just unmute yourself?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hey, all right. Hey, thank you very much for bringing this topic up. So my name is Bivin Sadler. I am statistics and data science over in Dedmon, and super excited to see your scouting and your building and all of this. So I've implemented oral exams for like the last 3 years, and I think all of us who have done oral exams before or taken one or really just given one, they take forever, right? Like they're authentic and they're great and it's everything we've said, but they take a long time. And my students really were kind of anxious about it, but then they really saw the value of it later. And in the process, they said, hey, what would be really nice is if we could give another oral exam halfway through the semester so we could practice, so that the big one at the end wasn't the high stakes one that we'd get to do for the first time. I was like, it took 20 hours to do the first one. How are we going to have them practice? And I think with this, so I use a tool now that's probably similar to someone's I'm anxious to see you to bring up, to that they can practice as much as they want. So one use case for this that I'm super excited about and super excited to see other ones is your oral exams go faster, at least mine do, when students are prepared for them. And when they really don't know what they're doing, they'll wander around and take a lot of time. And that's where a lot of the time sink is. So we don't want to really catch cheaters. We want students to really just learn throughout the semester. So if they can, I've kind of found that if they practice with this AI, then they're ready for the oral exam. Takes less time. We still get the authentic assessment and we're ready to go. So love what you're doing here. Thanks. That's a little bit.
Yeah, so one way it scales up nicely is you can do the big class, having them do the oral exam once each, and it scales up that far. But it honestly scales up easily way further than that. If the student wants to do 3 practice exams and then the one that counts, the AI is generally very happy to do that also. And if you set it up in the right ways, it'll be different questions that it asks each time. So it won't be repetitive, and it won't just be them memorizing the responses to the one set of questions it always asks. And so if they practice until they're comfortable with it, and can do it without taking any of my time, because they're just repeatedly talking to an AI, that can work out to be a great learning experience. And I didn't have the time to do one oral exam with them, but definitely I didn't have the time to do 4 oral exams with each of them. So it scales up really nicely that way. Good. Let's open this up for other folks who would like to introduce themselves. We have quite a few Zoomers here in face and perhaps in person. I'm not sure. Not seeing volunteers. Maybe while we're waiting for them, Addie, I don't think you introduced yourself. Do you want to?
Addie Tolliver, Associate Director for the Center for Teaching Excellence. And I'm not teaching any classes now, so I'm not going to be doing any oral examinations. Oh, that'll be awesome.
I can introduce myself. My name is Edita Rusgite. I'm in counseling department. So for me, someone said, I didn't hear the name, but that, to do oral examinations in person, it disadvantages some of the people, but at the same time, it's the timing component. So I'm kind of trying to balance this, how, like, I do invite them to talk more than not, especially now, just as someone else said again, that, it's like we want to be able to explain it to someone else. But I'm very, very curious to see how, so probably I'm a scout, I'm exploring. I'm definitely not a skeptic, I'm a scout for everything that is AI related, to see what are the ideas I can get, how to integrate in a more efficient way. That kind of really, it's both not only that will check the students' knowledge, but also contribute to their learning. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to hear more.
Any other Zoomers like to introduce yourselves? Okay, your opportunity. Oh, nope. Opportunity's passing. Oh, it looks like we do
Hello,
have. Yeah, go ahead, coach.
how are you? I'm from the Spanish department and I'm just here to learn about everything with the new AI. So, yeah, I'm teaching Spanish and for me, this is very important. So, thank you so much.
Anyone else like to introduce themselves? Yeah. I think you're muted, Madhavi.
Hi, I'm Madhavi Biswas, and I teach the honors section. I teach writing, so this is very useful for me because we are trying to implement an oral exam. So right now I'm scouting. I want to, so I haven't even thought of using AI to conduct oral exams. So I'm very interested, but I'm definitely scouting right now.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Hi, this is Patty Taylor. I can't get my camera to work. I'm sorry.
No.
But I too am scouting. I'm an adjunct professor in civil and environmental engineering and just trying to figure all this out.
Okay, if nobody else wants to introduce themselves, I guess I'll move on. Good. I was trying to come up with a thesis statement for this, and this is kind of what I was pretty confident of starting off, is that this was a promising way, at least at some point when the technology is there, to redeem essays, and other take-home assignments as being useful assignments to assign to students and to assess them by giving them grades for it, if we use the AI to distinguish between the students who have leaned heavily on their own AIs versus the students who actually understand the material. And I wasn't sure what the timeline would be. My tentative conclusion, having explored this in pretty good level of detail, is that this is in range for early adopters. I think that my sense is there aren't great off-the-shelf products that you can just use immediately and it's going to work automatically for you, that it's probably going to take some fiddling and experimentation and some trial and error to get it to work great for you. Maybe you're better at setting things up than I am and it'll work faster for you, but this is what I anticipate it would be like for me if I tried to set this up. Is a bit of hassling, but I think it is feasible at this point if you really want to do it. And so I'll point you in some directions, I'll point you towards projects that have worked, things that you might either try to get on board with something that exists, or point you towards DIY instructions from folks who have done this and what they did. So I think this is the sort of thing that if you wanted to do it, you could do it. But you'd be ahead of the curve at this point. And so if you wanted to wait and watch and see how this matures, I think that would be totally understandable at this point also. And I feel kind of like watching the merry-go-round, waiting for the right moment to jump onto it myself. And so, but I think it's one you could jump onto as soon as you're ready. But also exploring this and thinking more about this, I came to some more sort of pessimistic solutions, like the thought that, this will solve these problems of students leaning so much on AI. If I make them answer questions off the cuff, then I can see what they really understand themselves. But if we're imagining them doing this on their own computers, and we'll talk a bit about things like Lockdown Browser that you can use to help make it more secure and harder for them to cheat on. My eventual thinking about this is that there are going to be cheating countermeasures that the free market's going to make readily available pretty soon, that the same technology that makes it plausible to have these sorts of real-time discussions with an AI also make it plausible for some other AI to be listening in and whispering good answers to the students so that they will have access to the answers, and it'll be just like Constantine's presentations in class where they are reading off what an AI told them to say rather than doing it. So I think that it's probably going to inevitably be a sort of brief window where we have these exams and students haven't figured out good ways of circumventing them. But then pretty soon they will find ways of circumventing this and will be continuing on in this ongoing arms race that, maybe you can push me at some point about how optimistic I am about how our side's going to fare in this arms race. Not all that optimistic overall, but I think this can be a short victory, and especially if you want to be, if you get ahead of the curve, you'll have the victory longer before the students catch up and figure out how to cheat. So if you want to enjoy some victories in this overall losing arms race, this is a opportunity to have a few victories while they last. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's Twitter. Online interview, they have AI in this, right? So this is already there. So there, I don't think. I thought I was so loud that they would. So I think like the AI is already there. You can basically cheat your way through interviews that are even technical, etc. So I think again, this just should be a way of us helping our students do things that they enjoy and they want to learn in a sense more than trying to get rid of cheating, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And like in the last presentation I did for this group where I was talking about, well, here's how you could set up a chatbot for the students to converse with and learn things by conversing with it. I'm definitely totally on board with that being a useful activity for us to give our students, and that'll help lots of them to learn. This further thing where you're doing a sort of quasi-assessment like thing of having the AI ask pointed questions, not provide much in the way of helpful answers, with the goal of probing to see what the student understands and doesn't understand out of the paper that they turned in. That one, maybe you'll say, oh, it's just too easy for them to cheat on and not worth doing. I think, back before AI was on the scene, I knew they could cheat on the papers. Some of them would buy papers from paper mills, pay somebody to write a paper, stuff like that. And as long as it's kind of hard to cheat, and I don't think too many of them are going to do it, the assignment can still overall be worthwhile, and I write off the few cheaters as just part of the cost of doing business. And I'm somewhat optimistic that this will be like that it'll be hard enough to cheat that a lot of the students won't figure it out and will just opt to actually learn instead. But I do agree with you at some point, it's going to have flipped around that the whole dark market there is that supplies cheating tools to people who want them. As soon as these sorts of exams become very popular, that market will supply workarounds for them. So, and maybe you're right that it's already there, and I'm just too optimistic about or maybe it's pessimistic about our students' ability to figure out how to bypass these things. But I'm hopeful that for at least a little while, this would get us back to something that's hard enough to cheat on that lots of students won't. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I have a question to the group. So I teach most of my courses are CC courses. So they're courses that the students need to take in order to fulfill their requirements, but they're not necessarily courses part of a major per se. So I deal with a lot of rampant kind of cheating stuff because they're like, I don't really need this course. This is not the skills I need to thrive in whatever, some business marketing, something. So I'm curious for you guys that teach in major building courses that go towards a major, are you facing the same kind of AI issues? Or is it maybe better because the students realize I actually need to know how to do economics if I want to be an economist? No?
Yeah, I would say that you could, for Cox, you could tease apart the two, AI versus cheating. We've seen a huge uptick in cheating because of the increased pressure to get a job. And they're not using AI to cheat, they're just cheating. Like there's just rampant cheating in a lot of the core courses that we teach within the major, across majors in Cox. I mean, we run exams through our testing center that are all videoed, and you'll see a kid bringing in a test in a skirt for the rest. I mean, just blatant cheating. And we've really changed our policies around cheating. It used to be very instructor specific, where like you could handle the situation and that was it. But now everything has to be reported. So now everything goes into the file, even if you didn't change their grade, because we don't want repeat offenders. We want to know everything, be transparent of what's going on in terms of cheating. We have our own testing center, but yeah, we kind of have our own policy with regard to what
some schools have their own.
Yeah, it doesn't go to honors council because we didn't want to overload honors council with all of these various degrees, but we also want to track it so that once it does meet that standpoint, like if someone brings in an exam and cheats, their first offense, you may say, oh, well, no big deal. But if they've done it 3 times, we want that to be a problem for the student. And so we've really come up with this metric. Everything has to be reported, even if you didn't do anything about it. We're centralizing a lot of that because I think probably across all schools.
Yeah, but like Cox is centralizing Cox, not through the Office of Student Conduct.
Right. Not through the Office of Student
Conduct. Because we've been kind of talking to the Office of Student Conduct to see what their procedures are. That's why he mentioned the faculty disposition, which is the Office of Student Conduct's thing that.
Yes. Now, in terms of AI, I think we've had a huge shift to doing more things in class, just because you have to. So I think even we all understand that we do a lot of group projects, and the presentation itself is going to be like we have here, where every group is going to have like 90% of the same presentation if it's the same topic, because AI did it. So then we've started to rethink, well, do we really want to have group presentations? If all the material is the exact same, what value is there, and how do we discriminate? Because we also have a grade distribution policy in Cox that we've really been emphasizing the last 2 years. It's good, but it's harder for the instructor if everyone has this exact same presentation. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll have a bimodal negative distribution, right?
Using AI, and now I forget his name, like our main speaker, who's just like incredible. And one of the things he said, like AI basically ensures that everyone gets a C. And if you are average, you should get a C. And what I have always wanted to do is like have every project that my student is doing, which they choose, have 10 AIs do the same project, and then have an AI rank them. And if you don't outrank an AI, you get a C minus. That's it. I was just gonna mention about it doesn't matter. My impression that it doesn't matter what course you're teaching, students don't see the importance of what they're learning, and they don't come here with the I'm learning because I like it, and it's just and so I think that's kind of where we have the trouble. And so all this AI, all this not studying, all not putting the effort has to do, I think, with like your incentives.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to derail too much too. I can comment on a very specific population of students, the pre-med students, right, which I get a lot of. So they're on a very specific track. And I can say a slightly more optimistic reason, justification for why they cheat. And it's that a lot of them know that GPAs are meaningless now. Like that's not what people can't discriminate on GPA anymore in today with grade inflation and a million other reasons. So what they know is that they have to distinguish themselves by all this other thing, this mystical other things, these club involvements, these research projects, all this other stuff. So AI, I do think these generally are students that want to learn, but they are too busy. They look with doing all this other stuff, spinning their wheels, because they know that the GPA component isn't actually that worthwhile. So I have an even harder take, which is maybe like your B+ thing, maybe everything goes pass fail. And like we need some other metric of distinguishing great students, but that would come from the institution. So not for me.
And then Bivin, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, super quick, just because it was relevant to everybody. Like putting all this kind of together, back to Konstantin's point, yeah, in our master's program, not even in undergrad, but even before AI, it always astounded me how people pay a lot of money, to get all of these degrees, and especially at the master's, you'd think they were really focused on that piece. It's not rampant. I wouldn't say it's rampant, but it's not zero either. So that piece got it. And then back to the really poignant point of this inversion, I know that this is happening because I'm very close to all of our students. They all come through my first class. We don't have this huge program, so I know all of them. And a lot of them, you've got who you think are these top students that really kind of get it and are really advanced. They feel the pressure to use the AI so that they can keep up with the students who aren't. Forgot what the people that are kind of using it nefariously. They feel the pressure to keep up with it. So it is truly inverted, and Konstantin, it is in master's programs as well. And to the point of the honor council, which I've brought some students, unfortunately, honor council before. That's the hard thing with the AI, right? Is is it sounds human. So I'm not even really sure they're cheating, but I am sure, right? I know, but there's no way I can really kind of prove it. There's
No
not
smoking
some
gun.
other one that I can show was exactly like it.
Okay, I think I may try to keep going because I have more content than I have time left here. Good. So I think of custom AIs as being a lot like improv actors, where you can give them some cues that start off the direction that they go, but they'll soon go off on their own away from it. But still, the basis of any sort of flexible chatbot that's going to be discussing a wide variety of different papers is probably going to be some sort of custom generative AI that you've given instructions about how you would like it to talk with the students during the oral exam. So you'll take that custom AI and have it in conversation with the student. Somehow, if you want it to be talking about the student's paper, you'll need to give it the student's paper. I will just go ahead and assert, because we have limited time, that I think the best way to do this is have it at the beginning of the conversation, ask the student to upload their paper in the chat session. I'm pretty sure that is FERPA compliant, and some of the other options that you might think about wouldn't be. It also gets the AI to have the full paper there to ask the student questions about, which is good, because if part of the goal is to figure out if there are things in the paper the student didn't know about, student's not going to bring those up on their own. So the AI needs to find them in the paper and ask the student questions about it and detect that the student doesn't actually understand that part. If you want it to be an oral exam, then you'll need to have the student talking into a microphone. This is pretty simple with lots of the existing tools on ChatGPT. You can hit the little microphone in the corner and talk with it, or there's also in the corner a button that you can hit that makes it a fully interactive conversation with ChatGPT. So it will be voicing what it says and then listening on the microphone to what you say. So you basically have the oral format already off the shelf with lots of software. So I look at this as being the sort of minimal. If you want to just set this up for yourself, write the custom chatbot, encourage your students to use the voice commands as they're talking with it. And then afterwards, you can have them print to PDF the transcript of what the conversation was and turn that into you, and that'll give you access to what they did. So I take this to be the sort of minimal working model of this, and if I were piloting it, this is probably what I would start with, is just this. In a moment, I'll talk about the extra bells and whistles that some people add on top of this, but I think of this as the sort of minimal starting point if you want the least risk of things breaking and get something that's in the right ballpark of the experience. These are the main ingredients you'd want to have, and you get most of this just from a custom ChatGPT and them hitting that they want to do the out loud conversation option down in the corner, and they upload the essay at the beginning of the conversation. Yeah, Constantine.
So I've noticed that AI is really good at responding to questions and prompts. In this case, it seems that it needs to be the interviewer. So it needs to know how to ask questions, listen to answers, then provide a follow-up maybe to what was said and ask a new questions. Ask a new question. How do you get the AI to do that? Because usually it's on the receiving of questions rather than the intentional asking of and maintaining something.
Yeah. So the real key here is in the instructions that you give the chatbot about how you want it to converse. And you can do this better or worse. I think we're not going to have time today for me to do the live example I've been thinking about doing of what I think of as kind of a worse example, where the chatbot ends up being very terse and aggressive. And my initial reaction, I was chatting with ChatGPT about it when I first used it, and I said, wow, that was somewhere between a drill sergeant and fingernails on chalkboard is how annoying it was to talk with, with that one. So definitely, part of it was they picked a bad voice, that it was a more aggressive sounding voice than they should have, and set it to talk too fast. But part of it, they made available the custom instructions they gave the chatbot, and I could tell that the instructions could have been written better to make the chatbot more friendly and more easy to talk with. But
you can also use a chat, like you can start a chat and start talking about what you want to do when you create your custom chatbot. And say, I would like a certain type of language. And then now, after this conversation, can you please put the instructions that I will need to program my custom GPT? and it will put that together for you, even with instructions. So ChatGPT can help you build the instructions to do your custom GBT, and you can kind of play around with it and say, oh, show me the different voices that you can do, and it can help. And then you can put in whatever it gives you to program the one that you actually will share with the students.
Definitely asking ChatGPT for help walking you
Correct.
through this. It's quite good at helping
Yes.
with that sort of thing. And also trial and error experimentation is really essential.
Yes.
After my first experience with that chatbot, I was like, there's no way I would have tried that out and found how rude and uncomfortable it was for me
Yes.
talking with a thing that I would roll it out to a bunch of students like that, and especially post it online for everybody to see like that. I was kind of embarrassed. We'll see what it is in a moment, but yeah.
Just a quick follow-up to understand. So who sets it up and makes it custom? And then what's the role of the student? What's the role of the instructor when setting it up? So you said something about depends on the prompt. So I do one thing with my students where I give them the prompt and I said, you need to use this prompt because I've been testing it. I know that, what it could possibly produce. So do you depend on the students to prompt, or you give them a pre-made prompt by you? And then again, what is their role in setting up this custom?
The way I would do it, I think the sort of simplest path that I would probably recommend if you don't have a reason to do something different is make a custom chat GPT, which you basically giving instructions for the chatbot. Once you create that chatbot, you'll give your students a link to that chatbot. And right when they go to that link, they'll be talking with this custom bot that you've given it some background knowledge about your course. You've given it instructions about how you want it to interact with the students, including if you want it to be orally examining about a paper, I would recommend that it open the conversation by asking the student to upload their paper so that the chatbot will have it. It can read a paper super fast in like 20 seconds or something. It'll have read and understood the paper and be ready to start asking questions about it. And so your students will not just be going to ChatGPT generally, they'll be going to the address for the custom chatbot that you created. Yeah.
I love this idea. And I can see it easily implementable. I only have two questions. Is there a way that you can first have them record it in a sense? Because the way I would do it is I would program the bot to be like the NPR kind of interviewer that's interviewing someone and have a podcast based on the interaction with the student. But then
ChatGPT would respond well to that. If you tell it to role play that, I think it'll do a really good job at that.
Now that I saw you present this, I was like, oh, this is so. But the nice thing would be to get back an MP3 with the actual interaction. Plus, but now the big question is, how do you ensure that they can do it only once?
Ensuring that they do it only once is
a question of effort.
Is really hard.
Okay,
but
yeah,
if they're doing it on ChatGPT, basically, I know of no mechanism that once you've published the custom chatbot, it's technically available to anybody who knows the URL for it anywhere in the world. So there's and you don't even get metrics about how many people have used it. So there will be no way whatsoever that you can know if the student logged in 4 times and just submitted the transcript and maybe the video recording of the last time that they did it.
With the URL,
Mhm.
you can do both URL. So each student gets their own URL with the breakdown.
Yeah. Still, you won't know how many times they went to the custom chatbot and talked with it. But if you use other services, you can get other services that have them log into the other service, and then that service is using whatever LLM. And I don't have a great sense of what all the options are out there. There's a whole ecosystem. And honestly, as I was looking into this, I found there's lots of hype and very little video evidence that any of these things work the way that the hypers claim they work. So that was part of the roller coaster that was making me more skeptical about this, is if you read the claims, there's all kinds of awesome stuff that do this amazingly well. But if you look for evidence that it actually works, that's a lot harder to find. Like some of the sites will have a video demo link that does nothing when you click it. But there are lots of services out there that claim to have this sort of thing where they log in, and that their only access to the chatbot is by logging into that site, and it only lets them do it once. So then that's a way of restricting it just once. My own inclination is let them do it a bunch of times. It's a good learning experience for them, and not.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, yeah, let them do it, because if it becomes a study tool and they're taking it multiple times, and ultimately by doing it multiple times, they are learning the material and they're more able to communicate about the material. That's better, like why limit?
And the identity though is easily verifiable, correct? Like there's a like it doesn't matter how many times they sign in, it's a learning experience, which I agree, but we know who it is.
If it's ChatGPT, no. If you make the custom chatbot, you'll need your student to submit whatever you want them to submit to you. I think the most FERPA compliant thing you can ask them to submit is to print out a transcript of their chat session and submit that to you. Print it out to PDF and submit the PDF to you. In answer to the question about, I'm just going to jump slightly ahead in the slide to build up the rest of this frame. Putting a camera on them is a cheating deterrent, as well as letting you watch the video afterwards if you just want to hear their prosody and stuff like that. Putting it in a lockdown browser makes it harder for them to run some other AI that'll help them cheat. They'll need to use a second device to run the other AI on, which, they have 2 devices, so it's not that big of an impediment. But a lot of the lockdown and its competitors in this space, most of them offer an option for filming the student as they do it. So that's a way of getting the film that you're running afterwards, and also getting a layer of protection against cheating on these. Good. The other bells and whistles I put on here, that you'll see some of these have an avatar where you aren't just hearing an AI-generated voice, you're also watching an AI-generated avatar, which maybe some students enjoy that. The ones I've seen so far are pretty uncanny. I have an uncanny one queued up that I won't have time to show you all. The other thing, especially once you have a voice interaction in real time, another bell and whistle that various services will add, and ChatGPT has a sort of this built in that's not great, is a conversation manager that basically is waiting for pauses in the conversation, detecting if you're interrupting, and it stops the AI from talking when you are, and stuff like that. Probably if you want all those tools incorporated together, I would find a package like the one that whoops, I'll skip this one. So this is, honestly, this is the guy with the really rude drill sergeant chatbot, but he has a really helpful DIY guide about how to set it up. Just don't copy his instructions for the chatbot and pick a nicer voice, and really thoughtful reflections about what was working and what wasn't working on his chatbot. So I questioned the execution, but he has links there, including the service that he used that packaged a lot of those moving parts together, and worked kind of well for him. His doesn't have the avatar, but it does have the voice ones. Another one that you might be interested in, I'm not going to have a lot of time talking about, is Socratic Mind. This is one of the ones that has lots of claims, including scholarly papers, including claiming these pretty good results, feedback from their students. But I could find no online video evidence of it working, they have a contact link that I could have asked for things, but no presence that I could find online demonstrating that it was working. But the description of it sounds really promising. So if it works the way they say and the way they report in their academic papers about it, this would be a really promising one to try to get on board with working with them. They're doing various trials at several universities around the country, and you could probably get on board with that. Okay. I think I'm sensing some, I'm around time here. So I think I'll just, actually, I will put one last slide up, the more optimistic one. I talked a lot with ChatGPT about it and said, hey, you role play as an AI oral examiner and ask me questions about this talk. These are the questions it came up with, which I think we've talked about each of these along the way. And so you all have a sense of what the answers to these were. Honestly, when I did this with ChatGPT, it was a pleasant experience. I turned on the microphone and did my answers orally. Now, it helps that I've thought about this a ton, so I knew the answers to the questions. But I also felt like the ChatGPT was a lot better about asking polite questions, and it just read the content and figured out good questions, including follow-up questions to ask. And so this is probably the experience I've had in this space that made me most optimistic that, yeah, AI can come up with good questions to ask. And so this is a ground for optimism here. Okay, I'll stop at that and let people ask questions if they want. Any questions that folks have?
Cool. I think this is cool. I'm not sure how ready it is to feel autonomous and intelligent enough to ask good questions, and how the systems know how to record an MP3 that then can be provided automatically to the professor. It feels like we need to be creating the software and then selling it to universities. Then we're in business. But it really feels that we don't yet have a good solution for it. I think AIs can do it kind of, but we need a layer on top to be doing the pedagogically sound FERPA following, DAS following, those kinds of things before this can work really well. But this is really cool.
My sense, I looked into the FERPA stuff because I was really worried about it, and I'm not a legal expert, but my read on this is, in general, if we had an enterprise ChatGPT thing, then there'd be no issues at all. And there's some talk of SMU getting that, so where students will be involved, and then that'll all be covered in the licensing agreement that SMU will have with OpenAI. When we don't have that and students are just using their own non-enterprise accounts, in general, you cross lines. If you try to take works the student submitted to you and give it to somebody else that you don't have a contract with, you're likely going to be violating FERPA in that circumstance. But if you give an assignment to a student, go discuss your paper with an expert or with an AI, my understanding is both of those are things that you can assign to students without violating FERPA. So I can't hand their paper to anybody else, but I can give them an assignment where they hand their paper to the AI. It's probably good to encourage students. They have the option now to check that their paper won't be added into ChatGPT's future training data. Probably I would encourage them to do that, especially if they're thinking about maybe publishing the paper or something at some point down the road. They probably don't want it to be in training sets that could be given to others.
Is that something that you can program when you create that GPT?
I don't think there is a way that I can create a custom ChatGPT and check for everybody that none of their contributions to my custom bot will be used for training purposes. Probably ChatGPT wants to greedily gather as much data as they can. They let you opt out yourself, but I don't think they make it easy for me to opt a bunch of students out all at once. Be nice if they did. I would if they did, but I think currently you just have to tell your students, if you care about this at all, I encourage you to check don't use it for training. Probably most of the students don't give a shit. But